Ever forget vocabulary right after you study them? You're not alone. Most people forget 50% of the information within 1 hour. But there is actually a scientific approach to solving this: spaced repetition. It's a method for learning information long term. You can learn thousands of words over time by spending as little as 5-10 minutes a day. It does sound like dark magic, but it is a game changer for language learning. In this video, I'll explain what spaced repetition is in super simple terms, how to effectively use it, and also the top spaced repetition apps that you can start using today. By the way, if you don't want to watch the whole video, you can also read this video in the form of a blog post that I published a few days ago. The link is in the description. So spaced repetition is a way of learning where we review and practice the information we're learning, such as vocabulary, again and again, but with breaks in between. And every time we successfully remember the information, we increase the duration of the breaks. Let's imagine you're learning a new word.
Llama.
Instead of cramming it and reading it and saying it over and over and over, you review it today, and if you remember it, then you review it in 2 days, and then if you remember it successfully, then you review it in 5 days, gradually increasing the intervals or breaks between those practice sessions. And as you increase the intervals or the breaks, you strengthen the memory and you remember the word llama long term. Think about memory like a muscle. Every time you remember the information after those breaks, it's like going to the gym and working out those muscles. Our brains like to forget things unless you review them. There is a concept called forgetting curve. Imagine like a mountain and the mountain top. And whenever you learn the information for the first time and it's fresh in your memory, that memory is at the top of that mountain. However, as time passes, that memory starts sliding down the mountain and you start forgetting it. It starts fading from your memory. Anytime you review that knowledge, that information, it gets back to the mountaintop. And if you do nothing, then you just forget that information fades away. We tend to forget 50% of the information within 1 hour, 70% of the information the next day, and up to 90% of the information within the first 7 days. And the only way to retain that information is to recall it, to use it, to remember it. The problem with information like vocabulary is that you might see it today and not use it or see it again for the next days or weeks or even months. Cramming doesn't help. And if you do nothing, you just forget those words. That makes it very hard for our brains to memorize the vocabulary. So what do? Think of spaced repetition like a gym, which creates a situation and environment where you're forced to remember and use that information again and again, so that that information always stays on top of the memory mountain. Spaced repetition is a very smart system. It helps you remember and practice the words that you're starting to forget more often and words that you remember well less often, saving you a lot of time. Here is how it works. Let's say you're learning 2 words, alpaca and llama. Imagine that after a few days, the word alpaca is closer to the mountaintop, aka you remember it well, and the word llama started to slide down the mountain, meaning you're starting to forget it. With spaced repetition, you'll remember the word that you're starting to forget sooner and the word that you remember well later. So you only review the words that you need to review right now instead of wasting time reading or cramming all the words together. You might ask, Sher, but how the hell do I do this spaced repetition thing in day-to-day life? I'm learning dozens of words every day. No worries, you don't have to do it manually. There are apps which can handle that for you. For example, Anki. Anki is super popular. It's one of the oldest spaced repetition apps out there. It's a general purpose application, so medical students use it, language learners use it, law students use it. Whoever wants to learn whatever can actually use it. It's a solid option for spaced repetition. The UI might feel a bit clunky and a bit old school at times, but you might want to give it a try. If you're learning languages, however, I think the best application for learning vocabulary is the Heylama AI app. It proactively suggests vocabulary that you're missing. If you're adding your own vocabulary, it auto-creates examples for you. And finally, it also has the practice feature, and you can practice speaking with the AI tutor and use the words that you're learning and apply them in a real conversation. Full disclosure, I'm one of the creators of the app. By the way, if you decide to give Heylama a try after watching this video, make sure to hit me up, to message me from inside the app. I would be happy to extend your free trial. Just let me know that you're coming from YouTube. Here are a few tips on how to use spaced repetition effectively. Tip number 1, don't learn just random lists of words. You want to learn words which are relevant for you. So if you just copy other people's texts or other people's lists, it might not be what you need to learn. So at least curate delete those words, delete the words you don't want, or better, create your own vocabulary lists. Rule number 2 or tip number 2, always learn words in some kind of context. You always want to have some kind of example sentence. Otherwise, you might learn the word but might not know how to use that word in a real life situation. And tip number 3, ideally you find an opportunity to use that word in some kind of conversation along with spaced repetition. That way, you will make sure that word is stuck in your memory and never slides down the memory mountain. Spaced repetition is not some kind of study hack. It's a scientifically proven, effective method for remembering and retaining information for long term. With just a few minutes a day and the right tools like Heylama, you can make real and fast progress that lasts. You don't have to waste your time cramming and learning and reading all the information. Give spaced repetition a try and let it do all the hard work of keeping that information in your long-term memory. If you found this video helpful, please like the video and smash the subscribe button for more language learning tips. Have a beautiful day.